2020 at 7:30 p.m. May we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and
to the republic
for which it
stands, one nation,
God,
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to a meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung. Please be advised that all meetings of the board are open to the public and media consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, and that the advance notice required therein has been provided. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung at which formal action may be taken. This meeting is being conducted remotely using communication technology. Instructions for joining the meeting and participating in public comments have been posted on the district website and sent to the Watchung Borough and the Watchung Public Library, as well as to the school community through an email blast. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda at points in the meeting provided for the public to address the board. Recording or photographing other than for private personal use requires the consent of parents/guardians whose children may be included in the image. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barbella?
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli?
Yes, here.
Mrs. Harvey?
Here.
Mrs. Ingracia?
Here.
Mr. Kraft?
Here.
Mr. Mattiasi?
Here.
Mrs. Morales? Mrs. O'Donnell?
Here.
Mrs. Scharf?
Here.
All present.
Can I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved, Gail.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? And Mr. Pepe, can you please read what we will be going over in closed session?
Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-11, permits the Board of Education to meet in closed session to discuss certain matters, now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Education adjourns to closed session to discuss pending or anticipated litigation or contract negotiation and or matters of attorney-client privilege and specific prospective or current employees unless all who could be adversely affected request an open session. Further be it resolved, the minutes of this closed session will be made public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists. This closed session may be followed by an open session where action may be taken.
And I would just like to remind all board members to please leave the Zoom meeting before going into the executive session. And Mr. Pepe, will you or Manny, please, do you have a notice to state that we're in executive session to go up while we're in there?
We will.
Okay, great.
All right, thank you.
motion to come out of executive session?
So move, Gail.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Are there any board member comments?
I just would like to, this is Gail. I just wanted to say that our principals and superintendent and Rich and Connie have done an outstanding job with all the school closure preparedness plan. The amount of work that went into that was immense, and thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
Amen.
Okay, any announcements from the superintendent?
Yeah, I have a few, so bear with me. I want to start with a very big thank you to the PTO for the gratitude expressed through messages, videos, and gestures in support of our staff during Teacher Appreciation Week. It's very much appreciated. Also, the chicken fundraiser that the borough coordinated with Feed to Give, charity organization. We were very happy to be able to help. It was a huge success. They raised over $5,000 for the local food bank. The borough would like to arrange another one with Feed to Give on June 10th. And again, we're happy to loan the use of our parking lot and driveway. Wish them the best in this good work that they're doing. I would like to give a little bit of an overview about the school health-related closure preparedness plan that Mrs. O'Donnell just mentioned. It's kind of specific, so I'm going to take a little time to go over it just so it's clear, and I think it chronicles the history of the plan over the last 7 weeks and also gives a roadmap for the future. So the Watchung Borough School District School Health-Related Closure Preparedness Plan consists of 4 state-required components. The first 2 components include the demographic profile and the distance learning plan for Bayberry and Valley View. The third component includes district information on Wi-Fi and meal access, facilities, and summer programming. And finally, the fourth component includes a list of essential employees and their roles during the closure. This is part of the public attachments for tonight's meeting. And once approved, we will submit it to the Executive County Superintendent, who in turn submits it to the Commissioner, and we'll post it on the website. But each school has designed a distance learning plan that is focused on advancing learning through a balance between academic instruction and social and emotional support. Our objective is to continue instruction while ensuring student well-being during the school closure. The plans share a framework and are substantially similar in design, but nuances exist based on grade level appropriate strategies. The preparedness plan was originally submitted to the Executive County Superintendent on March 12th after it was determined that the schools needed to be closed as of March 16th. The plan was revised and resubmitted to comply with a state request for additional information on March 17th. We were originally told that the plan did not need to be board approved, that it just needed to be submitted to the county, but then some new laws were passed. We also revised it once more to document the evolving nature of our distance learning plan. And so we created a sort of a structure here where we have 3 phases. Phase 1 involves the preparation for the school closure and the work that was being done for the first 2 weeks of the school closure. And then phase 2 were changes to the instructional expectations for the next 2 weeks. And then we move to what we call advanced student engagement for weeks 5 through 12. The plan also had to be revised and to include additional information based on guidance we received from the NJDOE on May 5th. The law that was passed, which Governor Murphy signed into law on April 14th, is called Public Law 2020, Chapter 27. And required that the revised plan must be approved by the Board of Education and submitted to the Commissioner through the Executive County Superintendent. I'll review the highlights of the 3 phases to illustrate the evolution of the distance learning plan from preparation under the emergency circumstances to the current framework, which is designed to take us through the next 5.5 weeks. As we've seen so far, instruction will continue to evolve based on the needs of our students. But way back in early March, when we had phase one and we were preparing for this inevitable situation, we decided that teachers and students would follow the one session day schedule. At Bayberry, teachers initially assigned review and extension activities through packets, websites, and Google Classroom for grades 3 and 4. At Valley View, this was done through Google Classroom. Grades were not recorded. At Valley View, placeholders in the electronic gradebook were included for communication with students and parents. At Bayberry, the second trimester was extended to ensure all grades and comments were posted in PowerSchool for report cards. Email was deemed the primary means of communication with students and parents. Parents were to receive a weekly update on the classroom activities. At Valley View, GoGuardian was used for communication with students. Staff and student attendance were recorded daily through Google Forms, and this process has remained in effect throughout the entire closure and will continue to remain in effect. When we got to weeks 3 and 4 and there were changes to the instructional expectations, teachers began new instruction. At Valley View, grades were recorded in gradebooks. Assignment due dates remained flexible though. Multiple platforms were added to student-teacher toolboxes, Chromebook cameras, Gmail, Calendar, Zoom, Google Meets, etc. GoGuardian was expanded to work on non-school issued devices. Marking period 3 grades were equal to or higher than a student's course average as of March 13th, the last day that we were in school in the buildings. The Student Council created a Google Classroom for the student body to interact and participate in challenges. At Bayberry, we shifted all students, including grades K2, into Google Classroom. Weekly class meetings through Zoom were tried. Special subject area teachers created grade-specific Google Classrooms and moved to introducing new projects and activities. Bayberry School Spirit Week was held virtually. The third trimester began. At both schools, teachers began using a synchronous learning platform at least one time per week and began providing opportunities for asynchronous and synchronous differentiated learning, including classwork, independent work, and projects. Daily announcements were included on the school websites. The school counselors, nurses, and CST members created a social emotional resource page for staff, students, and families, including spring break activities. The 504 and IRS teams modified plans based on changing student needs. And that brought us to phase 3, advanced student engagement for weeks 5 through 12. Teachers continued to teach new instruction, but prioritizing specific skills and content. At Valley View, grades are posted in PowerSchool. Weighting categories in the gradebook were modified to reflect the distance learning practices. Formative assignments and assessments became more heavily weighted than the summative assignments. Students, parents must notify the teacher on or before an assignment due date if they need more time or assistance, all part of the flexibility of the plan and ensuring social and emotional well-being. At Bayberry, special subject areas moved to a pass-incomplete grading system. At both schools, teachers continue to use synchronous learning platform daily. At Bayberry, teachers are holding daily classroom meetings through Google Meet, embedded within their Google Classroom, and expanding the use of various platforms for student learning. Teachers are available to provide extra help for students through synchronous meetings after the one session day is over. At both schools, they continue providing opportunities for asynchronous and synchronous differentiated learning, including the classwork, independent work, and projects. Teachers create videos for students to reference outside of classroom time using recorded tools such as Loom, Google Meet, Khan Academy, etc. for new instruction. The 504 and IRS teams continue to modify plans based on changing student needs. At Valley View, the Community Outreach Club hosts virtual trivia night for students, staff, and families. The Student Council creates opportunities for students to interact live, and virtual field trips are explored. Through all 3 phases, special services have remained in place, including modifications and accommodations. If an IEP program is an in-class resource, the special education teacher is collaborating with the general education teacher in planning and preparing for instruction. If an IEP program is a pull-out resource, the special education teacher is planning and preparing based on the student's IEP goals and objectives and necessary modifications and accommodations. The special education teachers continue to monitor student progress on IEP goals and objectives, which will be reported on their progress reports. Child study team case managers have been available during the regular school day hours to communicate with families, in-district staff and teachers, and out-of-district program staff regarding students' participation, progress, and needs during the school closure. Planning, review, and eligibility meetings have continued through Google Meet. The most significant change we saw over the last several weeks during the closure had to do with related services, which have been available through live online sessions since after spring break. Originally, these sessions were prohibited by law, but the governor changed this by executive order in early April. As for ESY, we have been advised by the county to plan for both remote and in-person programs because no decision has been made at the state level. We are currently planning for both possibilities and a possible hybrid model. We should get guidance from the state soon. And again, our distance learning framework is in place for the rest of the year, but instruction will continue to evolve based on the needs of our students. We're constantly looking for ways to grow and improve. I've begun collaborating with the county superintendents on a reentry plan for the fall, but again, we will be restricted by any state decisions which have not been made yet. So that planning continues. I'd also like to share, unless there are questions from the board, I'd like to share the parent survey results. And Manny, I know that you have the PowerPoint. If you could put that on the screen, that would be great. Now, this survey went out on Friday, April 24th, and we originally received 140 responses. A reminder was sent on April 29th, generating another 76 responses. And then the third reminder went out the following Friday on May 1st. And we had an additional 39 responses, which represented 255 families and 381 of our 623 students. So roughly 61% of the students in the district. Phase 3 of distance learning went into effect 2 days before the initial responses. And I just say that to create some context as we look at some of these responses. And if you go to the next slide, please. There you go. So the first question was about internet, and device access and whether there was enough. We had a pretty overwhelming response of almost 87% saying yes, there are enough devices in the family for everyone to have one. There are some folks that have reported that they could use another device in order so that the kids all have a device to work simultaneously. We have signed out a number of Chromebooks over the course of the closure, and we have other ones that we can. And if anyone does need, if parents still need a Chromebook, I encourage them to reach out to their child's principal, who can put them in touch with our tech support, and we can loan out Chromebooks that way. Next one, Manny. This is the internet access, so it's 99.6%. So we're very fortunate. And for anyone who did respond this way, if there's something we can do to help, please reach out. Again, through the building principal is probably the fastest way to do this, but we can see if we can help. Okay. This slide is about the grade level. You can see it's really a very balanced participation. Pre-K had the fewest, and that's perfectly understandable. Everyone else had somewhere between 7% and 12.5%. So really a very balanced distribution of responses. Next, man. This was the question about how your child is feeling. Just under 70% said the children are doing fine, but we do have about 23% saying they're a little stressed, but they're doing okay for now. And again, this is the whole idea of trying to balance the well-being of the kids socially and emotionally, and that's why we have our counselors and our nurses and our child study team members working with families. And please don't hesitate to reach out, for that kind of support or resource if the child is struggling. Okay, this is the question about how much time is my child engaged in school-related work and activities per day? And this is offline time, non-screen time. So predominantly, you know, these bar graphs should all add up to 381 students. Predominantly, it's about an hour or less. Over 100 students, it was estimated that they're spending 1 to 2 hours. 50 students, 2 to 3 hours per day. This is computer-based independent time. And so here we see probably more in the 1 to 3 hour range than the independent time, than the previous slide where we were talking about offline work. So this is computer-based independent work where a student might be writing a paper or responding to questions or watching a pre-recorded video. Next slide. This is live interaction time. And here we have over 200 saying it's 1 hour or less, but probably about a little bit more than 75 saying 1 to 2 hours, and just a little over 50 in the 2 to 3 hour. Taking into consideration the overall impact of the pandemic on our household, I feel that for my child, the school workload here, 63.3% of the folks said the workload's appropriate given the circumstances. 15% said should be increased, and just slightly under that, it was around 12% said it should be decreased, and then a range of different responses for other, which was probably in the range of about 8 or 9%. And this question was about, for my child, the amount of live online instruction is appropriate. And here we saw 54% saying it was appropriate, 38% saying it should be increased, and a small number of folks saying it should be decreased, and then a range of other responses. But predominantly it's either appropriate or should be increased. Next slide, Manny. And then the overall satisfaction bar graph, where it indicated that I believe this was roughly, and I have to double check the number real quickly. It came out to about 93% of these three larger graphs made up about 93% of the population. So either saying it was okay to very good to really doing well. But I think it's very telling that we had 200 and just a little over 250 answers that place this in the 4 and 5 range. Next slide. These were some of the other comments, because there was that free response question at the end about anything else you'd like to offer. Probably the largest category fell into what I would call praise and gratitude for the hard work of the teachers. This was recognized throughout the responses, but what I noticed in the pattern of responses from early, and this is why I mentioned that when the survey first went out on Friday, April 24th, it was about Wednesday of April 22nd is when we had shifted a bit to create more live interaction. So you saw a lot of requests in the April 24th and April 25th survey responses asking for more live interaction. And you saw those decrease later on. Not that they went away, but you saw that they decreased, and you saw acknowledgement that more live interaction was happening and people were pleased with that. Early on, you saw the technology issues, including use of iPads and some other glitches were causing problems. Our tech support and our building principals have done a really nice job of helping people resolve those issues, and you saw very few of those in the later survey responses the following week. One of the biggest challenges was supervising children for parents while trying to fulfill job responsibilities. You saw that more frequently in earlier responses, but you still saw it throughout. There were some requests for more of a challenge. Not just more work, but deeper instruction, others asking for more like a full day kind of program. And then others saying it's too much work already, that special should be decreased. But it was a wide range of responses, as you would expect when you have 255 people responding. But overall, positive responses, positive comments and remarks, but also ones that give us an idea about how we can continue to grow and evolve during the rest of the school closure. And we'll continue to look at ways that we can improve by working with the teachers. But again, everyone is working exceptionally hard, doing a really nice job. And again, focusing on the students and trying to adjust to this new normal of remote or virtual learning. Are there any questions from the board?
Hey, George, I'm glad we put this together, and thanks for compiling the data. And just at the end, you mentioned you'll be using this to modify as we go forward if necessary. Any initial thoughts based on the feedback of how you would use it, or you're already decided how you're going to use it to adjust if necessary?
Well, I think it's something that we continue to talk about. The principals continue to work with the teachers, get feedback from the teachers directly. We have faculty meeting scheduled for tomorrow. There's always that feedback loop that we value and want to know how things are going from not just the perspective of the families and the kids, but also from the teachers, so we can make this work in the best possible way.
Yep.
So we're going to continue to look at that. And again, it's not like we never looked at this as a minimum requirement or saying that you have to do this amount just to get by. This is always about trying new ideas. Teaching and learning works best in an organic way, and that's true when you're in the physical buildings with students, and it works the same way virtually. We offer ideas, we ask for different ideas, teachers share, they plan together, the instruction evolves, we assess students, we get a better sense of how we can improve learning in the virtual classroom, just as we would in the classroom.
Right. Okay.
So, different challenges, but also different opportunities to learn and grow.
Sure. Absolutely. So nothing specific jumped out at you just from like your initial review? And I know we've only had the data for a week or two now, but nothing specific that you took away from it or thoughts going forward on?
Well, overall as a dominant impression, I thought things are going pretty well, but there are opportunities, and whether it's the initial reaction was we need to have more live instruction. We did that, and you saw a decrease in those requests. So clearly that is something that is working well, but there are also some challenges to live instruction. I think the recorded video lessons have worked very well based on the feedback we received, and that will continue. There are challenges to having live instruction. I know there are also challenges to having everyone participate. So just some people will ask for additional live interaction, but at the same time, not all of the students can show up at a particular time or are showing up at a particular time for a morning meeting. So that's a challenge too. I mean, trying to make this work for 623 kids is always hard, but the teachers will continue to examine the practices, continue to collaborate, not only with each other, but with the principals and taking feedback from the families, and we'll continue to build on what we have. So I don't see any enormous changes. I see it more as just a process of continuous improvement with the framework that we have. I've heard plenty of feedback about other districts where it's not working as well. So I think we're in a good place, and I think we can continue to move forward.
Hi, George, it's Jen. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think it's great that you were able to see that change in your responses with the later responses that came in reference to the live interaction question. I think that that's nice. I also think that it was nice that the teachers were recognized because personally speaking, it's a Herculean effort doing this remotely, particularly with the younger children. It is hard, and it's, yeah. So I think it's great. Are we thinking of sending out another survey before the end of the year to kind of fine tune things, since we don't know what September will bring?
I think that's a good idea. I think we have to send out a survey to see how it's going, and we'll get a better sense. And again, as this continues to evolve and change, you know, sending out a survey probably with very similar questions probably give us pretty good data on how things have improved from the parents' perspectives.
I like the slides too while they were up.
George, this is Dory. Did I know you sent out the survey for the teachers, a separate survey for the teachers. When do you anticipate that's going to be turned in for you guys?
Well, I haven't had time to analyze those results, and I don't think everyone's had an opportunity to respond to it yet. So that's to be determined based on the results of the survey.
Okay, great, thanks.
But I do think it's important to get the teachers' perspectives, and you know, and like I was saying before, it just gives us an opportunity to understand it from that perspective, where some things we would like to see happen, we don't anticipate some of the challenges that are very real and practical, because this is not school as you know we're used to. So we'll continue to use that kind of feedback, both through surveys and through in-person feedback, faculty meetings or small group meetings, so that we have a better idea of exactly what we can do to improve the program. Any other questions? I want to move on to, there's two more items just very quickly. Thank you for your attention for those two longer parts of my remarks. Promotion ceremonies are on everyone's minds across the state of New Jersey. High school graduations are being talked about, not only by parents and principals, but also by the governor and Colonel Callahan, the state superintendent of police. And the last bit of guidance we've received most recently this weekend was that graduation ceremonies, and this would include our promotion ceremonies, that the only virtual graduation ceremonies can be planned at this time. So we've been talking about different ways to honor our 8th graders and our 4th graders, and some of those plans now are not doable, unfortunately, but what we will continue to look at is the best way. And Mrs. Kidd will talk a little bit about this Valley View report, because she is talking with plenty of folks across the state and also locally within our own community about doing something as best we can to honor our 8th graders. And again, we don't want to forget our 4th graders and the moving up ceremonies that right now look like they will have to be done virtually. And then the last item is the revised calendar. So what we're looking at here is that with the 4 snow days that we have left over, we had 5 in the original calendar. We used the 1 day on December 2nd. We have 4 days left. And instead of trying to take off Fridays or Mondays or something like that when we're still in the stay-at-home order, after consulting with members of the Board of Education, I'm recommending that we end the year with those 4 snow days, making Wednesday, June 17th, the last day of school. So that is a resolution on the agenda, and that revised calendar is part of the public attachments. And then last, it's Special Education Week. The second week in May each year is designated as Special Education Week in New Jersey to commend school board members, schools, educators, parents, and students themselves for their dedication to ensuring quality education for students with disabilities in New Jersey. So I want to mention that and recognize this. And with that, I also want to turn it over to Nicole DeToda, our Director of Special Services, to offer updates in special education during the closure. And after that, our principals will share brief reports about virtual happenings at their schools. Thanks so much for your attention.
George, this is Joe. I have one quick question before we move
Sure.
on. This obviously applies to both schools and so forth. Now that obviously it's been determined that the kids are not coming back to school this school year, has there been some talk about obviously returning of equipment along with allowing the students to go back into schools to get stuff out of their lockers, etc.?
Yes, there has been, and Mrs. Kidd is going to talk a little bit about that during the school report.
Okay, thank you.
The timing of that is really the issue, but some schools in the county and across the state are trying to tie that with, doing something nice for the kids in terms of their high school graduations, but that's also been complicated by the fact that we now have guidance saying that you can't have any of these gatherings or graduations, but we will definitely be planning something probably closer to the end of the year, or when the stay-at-home order is lifted, that we have something arranged where we can have equipment returned and obviously lockers cleaned out, etc.
Thank you.
Good question. Now, Mr. Toda, are you on here, Nicole? I told Mr. Toda we'll probably be closer to 8:15. So
I'm here.
Oh, there you go. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you. Mr. Alexis already provided an update on the district school closure preparedness plan as it pertains to special services. And he also shared what we know so far about extended school years, so I will not elaborate on either of those any further right now. I did want to point out that May is Better Speech and Hearing Month. Our speech and language pathologists are compiling resources that will be shared with all staff and families throughout the month to increase awareness of the role of the speech and language pathologist in the school and also the typical development of speech and language skills. As Mr. Alexis said, this week is designated as Special Education Week, and as such, I would like to thank the administration and the board members for their continued support, especially through staffing, programming, and allocating resources to ensure that the district can best meet the needs of all of our learners. I'd also like to thank the district staff and the parents for their ongoing collaboration in identifying students' strengths and needs and for planning for their educational programs together. And I would certainly like to recognize the hard work of all of our students every day. As always, if any parents have questions or concerns, they're encouraged to reach out to their child's teachers, their case managers, and certainly to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Toda. And I believe, Manny, if you could unmute Mrs. Kidd.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I didn't know if I was unmuted or not. It wouldn't let me do. I hope everyone's doing well. I want to, reiterate what Mr. Alexis said before on behalf of the Valley View staff. I want to extend our sincere gratitude to the PTO, to the parents and the students who sent us all those messages of support and gratitude during Teacher Appreciation Week. We can never hear the good stuff enough. It helps us. I know we're all, working through this new normal and getting positive feedback. We encourage you to keep it coming, not just to do it 1 week out of the school year, but it was a great week. So thank you to everyone. I hope everyone was able to view the Valley View video message that we created for our students. The staff was very excited to put something a little extra together to show the kids that we are always thinking about them. The video message was sent to students via email on Friday, and we also have it embedded on our school website. So if you didn't get to see it, because I know that when you ask your kids what they did at school today, they don't always share. So if you'd like to see it, it is on our school website. Our student clubs, they've been busy creating opportunities to stay connected beyond the classroom. Student Council has continued to hold weekly challenges for the students to participate in. This week, we asked our students to display signs in their windows or their yards thanking essential workers. And we also gave them a time to go outside and clap or make some noise. Something similar I've seen, I'm sure you've seen that they do in New York City, but kind of extending it to our small town heroes also. The Community Outreach Club held its first virtual family trivia night last Thursday. And we're planning 2 more. We're going to have one on May 21st and the other one on June 11th. It was a lot of fun. The questions ranged generations, so it was nice to have people of all ages participate. So I encourage you to jump on if you can join one of them. I'll send an e-blast out a little bit closer to the next date, which is May 21st. Additionally, another service the Community Outreach Club is providing is, along with Mrs. McLeod and Mrs. Sushevsky, they're hosting open discussions for students. So they can just connect, ask questions, share their feelings about life during distance learning. And we're hoping to host those meetings on a regular basis. We had a small turnout last time, but it was a good conversation. So we're hoping to continue those. Just some other avenue for kids to do something after the school day. And then we've also begun to plan ways to extend student experiences during the school day. I know that we were referring to the survey and kind of looking at other things that we could do for kids. So what we're looking to do is we're planning a virtual version of the Narratives of Courage, and that's for Monday, May 18th. What we're planning on doing is giving kids some different things to interact with, some different speakers or different experiences, and then reflect on the day. We're also looking to plan grade level virtual field trips. So we would pick one day, Monday, June 1st, and we would plan a virtual field trip for each grade level. And again, it would be an experience different for each grade level, and then we would have them do a short reflection afterwards. But we're trying to find different ways to engage them and connect them during the school day. And then regarding the graduation and the end of the year activities, like Mr. Alexis mentioned, I've been in touch with middle schools across the state, including all of the sending district middle schools. And I've met with our fabulous 8th grade parent committee and the PTO, and we're really just brainstorming ideas. And, with the governor's announcement, it changed all the plans we had. So we're just shuffling the deck. And we're beginning to formulate our end of the year plans. As I have more concrete information, I will definitely share it with you. Obviously, there's no substitution for the celebrations and the events that normally fill our spring months, but we're going to do our best to make them very special for our students because they deserve it. Also, as mentioned earlier, we're putting plans in place for students to retrieve any possessions left at school and return any school property. The 8th graders have to turn their Chromebooks in. Things like that. The date, of course, will be determined by the governor. And I'm not going to share any tidbits that the 8th grade parents and I planned today because they're exciting and I think they want them to be a surprise. So I'm not sure yet. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Karen, I just want to say that this is Gail.
That
The signs in front of the houses for the Valley View 8th grade students that are graduating are inspiring and exciting for those families.
That's wonderful.
Okay.
I think the last few were delivered today, so I'm hoping everybody's got theirs now.
Okay, good.
We're very excited. Thank you.
I can say my daughter loved her, so
Oh,
very excited. It was a highlight of her day.
oh, that's wonderful. Wonderful. I can't take any credit for it. The parents were on top of it. They did a wonderful job. Anyone else? All right. Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, Mrs. Kidd. I know I saw Mrs. D's name on the list of participants. Manny, if you could unmute Mrs. D.
Good evening. How are you this evening?
Okay.
Good. Thank you for having me. Similar to Mr. Alexis and Mrs. Kidd, I'd like to express my sentiments and thanks on behalf of myself and my staff for the PTO and the families and the students who participated in staff appreciation last week. The culminating video that we all received on Friday moved a lot of us to tears, but it was a very welcome surprise. And we do thank you for all of the little notes and pictures that we received throughout the week. And again, like Mrs. Kidd said, please keep it up. It's what keeps us going every day. So thank you for all that hard work. And a special thank you to Mrs. Checchio, who I know kind of took charge of that whole week and really put a lot of work into it, and it was very, very well received. As Mr. Alexis alluded to, we had a lot of changes to our distance learning plan at Bayberry School. I feel that the changes are going well, as do the staff. I'd like to thank the staff, the students, and the families for implementing those changes. I've popped into a couple daily classroom meetings, and it's always so exciting to see all the kids every morning getting on and connecting with their teachers and classmates live, and it's very nice to see. Similar to Mrs. Kidd, we looked at some of the results from the survey, and we are looking at ways to expand and differentiate some of the learning opportunities for our students. So I am working with the staff. We are going to be planning some virtual field trips and some different activity days with our specialists so that our students can engage and have some form of normalcy with different activities that they would be doing throughout their school year. Another exciting piece that we're working on is some of our 5th grade students are volunteering to become guest readers for our 2nd graders. And so they're going to be recording themselves reading a picture book and then sending it to one of my 2nd grade teachers. And then that's going to be made available for all of the teachers to kind of pull from a classroom and drop in. Again, almost like a buddy reading, continuing our budding reading, which we do throughout the year. And so we're excited to engage the 2 schools and the students that way, through that avenue. Another thing that we did this past month was the Lean On Me outreach, which celebrated and thanked all the workers that are out on the forefront. And so our students either played the entire song or a piece of the song or sang a piece of it, recorded themselves, and then sent that to Mrs. Morrison or Mrs. Riley, who then compiled it together and sent it out to the staff, but then also to the organization who was spearheading the project. So that was very nice to see some of our students and families working together to create those videos. And then finally, similar to Mrs. Kidd, I've been meeting with principals from around the state. I'm also in communication with our Teachers Association and the PTO to make our 4th grade moving up a little special. And so we're in the talks of planning some different activities, which, similar to Valley View got sidelined with the recent announcement. So we're rethinking a few of our different approaches just to make those final days of their Bayberry Elementary School experience exciting and wonderful. So, does anyone have any questions for me?
Hi, Mrs. Dobransky. This is Jen Scharf. Has there been any thought to possibly doing, and I know it's a huge logistical thing, but I have heard of it being done, doing like a Zoom move up day for the children, because particularly the kids, the young kids, for them to maybe do some kind, and I know here typically the classes aren't established yet, but perhaps a Zoom call with that grade level, just so that the children just kind of get that face time with who could possibly be their teacher next year, or maybe, just something just to kind of put, kids' minds at ease, because that's always an important day for them.
It is, and that's a great question. It's, again, I've just started those conversations of how we can logistically make a lot of that happen. And so we're talking about possibly doing pre-recorded messages or trying to do something live. As Mr. Alexis said before, sometimes accessibility is a struggle all at the same time, but it's something that with the new features of Google Meet being embedded in Google Classroom and us being able to record, that's something that I am in discussion with the teachers about currently.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mrs. D. And that concludes, it was kind of a lengthy session on superintendent remarks and school reports. Thank you for your attention and patience, everyone.
George, are you going to go over enrollment?
It has, we changed, I believe it went up by 1 student. So it's where it was back on September 23. And it's, remained anywhere from 619 to 623 throughout the year.
Then, Gail, can you please give the HR report, committee report?
Okay, so the minutes of the HR meeting were distributed. There were no questions after their review of the board's review. And thank you all teachers. You're doing a great job.
Rich, can you please give the operations committee report?
Can I?
Sorry?
Can I do it the same way? I'll just go over some of the highlights. Obviously, this is a little bit old news. We had the budget review, the budget presentation. We want to just thank again Rich and George and the committee for the hard work they did on that, and I think that that came out well. We did get a long-range facilities plan cost estimate, which was quite high, $12 million basically. And the committee asked both George and Rich to go back and see, exactly what was necessary and what was nice to have, but not necessary to have, and to, sort of rank the items listed in the cost estimate, and also the timing for them, so that we could go back with a plan on how to fund it. I expect it will come down. I'm not sure how much, but I think timing and priorities are what Rich, Pepe, and George Alexis are working on now. We're also going to talk to the bond attorney about timing for a possible referendum, depending on how that goes. Just skip some of this stuff. I think the last item of note probably for the public would be that there was a question about preschool tuition, and Mr. Alexis has recommended that the board reduce the rate by 50% for tuition payments during the time distance learning is in effect. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jen, can you please give the curriculum committee report?
Curriculum committee met on April 21st. Our next meeting is June 4th, and I think we've covered the distance learning plan pretty thoroughly through this meeting, so I won't get into that. I think we've discussed all of that.
And Joe, can you please give the policy committee report?
Sure. So we had a tentative meeting scheduled for May 7th. However, it was canceled because there was nothing pressing. The 2 policies that we have remaining on the agenda for a second read was the playground policy and restraint policy. However, obviously not pressing at the moment, given that we're distance learning. So time was given back to focus on some of the curriculum items, and working on the questionnaire and the survey results. So we'll reschedule and have the meeting for this month. However, we do have for a second and final read the paid sick leave mandatory policy in tonight's agenda.
And Rich, are there any updates as the legislative liaison?
Yes, there are. As you guys know, I don't usually talk about bills that have not been signed, but there's one that was signed, which is the Hunger-Free Student Bill of Rights, which says the bill prohibits the denial of meals to students whose school meal bills are in arrears. A lot of these bills, the ones that are signed and the ones that have been either vetoed or are pending, have to do with the current pandemic crisis that we're in. The governor did veto the Bridging of Digital Divide grant program, which talks about, basically the tools and the devices that would be used to provide or expand access to education and technology for students whose families do not have the means to purchase them. Thankfully, I think as a result of the survey that we did, we can see that our town is not going to be adversely affected by this veto. But it is basically because of the uncertainty in the budget. And then finally, and I don't know, Mr. Pepe may know more about this, but there are two bills pending before the legislature now, I guess one in the House and one in the Senate, that basically says that the releasing of state funds, either through property taxes or for state grants, could be delayed by the governor during times of an emergency. And I think that has the potential to affect not only us, but virtually every district in the state. And I'm not sure how we would handle that within our budget constraints, because we have obviously costs that have to be paid. But I think the state is in, between a rock and a hard place with the costs they've been incurring because of the pandemic and probably lack of federal funding to shore that up. Rich, I don't know if you have any other comments on that.
Sure. I'm happy to say that I don't foresee this in the near future impacting us tremendously. It's not really at this point about budget issue, it's about cash flow. And so it's about how much money do you have in the bank, so when you go to print your paychecks and run your payroll, do you have money in the bank to back that up? And right now we're not in danger of a negative, of any kind of negative thing with cash flow. That could change by the end of the summer as we continue to have bills to pay and not have money coming in. Eventually we'll get to the problem. I'm watching it very closely. So far we've had no indication from our borough that they're going to withhold any of the local taxes. Of course, we're all waiting to see what happens when that law is finally passed, not passed, modified, and then we'll, we're watching this and we're preparing for whatever might come. But right now, it does not look bad for us.
Yeah, well, I think it would, I should have said it would impact really next fiscal or school year, not this one so much, because this one's almost over. That's all I had, Dory.
Thanks. Joe or Jen, any update from as the town council liaisons?
I just wanted to reiterate some of the comments by George earlier on for the great efforts for the fundraiser for Feet to Give and Miss Eisenberg-Connecton's efforts there to raise money for the food bank last week. I believe, if I remember correctly, I believe Jessica also may have attended that from a board perspective. I heard it was very successful. So very appreciative on behalf of the board and the community for those efforts, especially during these challenging times for some of these families. So very appreciative of that. I didn't have anything else to add.
Gail, do you have anything to report for community engagement?
No, but the same with Feed to Give. Yes, Jessica and Gracia went on that Wednesday for distribution of the chicken. And it's nice to know that we'll be doing this again. It was a nice group thing for us all to be together doing it. Shall I move on to the next one too?
Yes, please.
Okay, very good. So we had a board meeting a week and a half ago, and needless to say, they're very concerned because this is special education, higher high school level, and they've had to do some cutbacks, but most of all, trying to make a decision whether they'll be going back in September, just because they're very high, it's a high risk school. Some of their deep concerns are just sanitizing in every classroom all the time, and passing in the hallways of the students, and bathrooms and the cafeteria. So these are things that we're going to have to be thinking about ourselves in September when we come back, hopefully. But in any case, they were saying that we would have to give masks, and there would be split sessions for the school also. So with that, a lot is going on with the Somerset County Educational Services Commission at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica, any report from the Somerset County School Boards Association?
Yeah, the association had its first virtual meeting ever on Tuesday, May 6th. And there were the most attendees I think they've ever had, just because everyone was able to join remotely. So we had not only our Somerset County field rep, Gwen Thornton, but Executive County Superintendent Roger Jenks. And he gave a lot of insight into just the county's efforts to wrap up the school year through the distance learning. He acknowledged that he's reviewed all the budgets. He indicated that he had been meeting twice a week with every superintendent for an hour to an hour and a half each time. So constant contact and communication with superintendents individually and on a regional basis, talking about best practices. One thing that I found really interesting and aspirational was that as far as Somerset County, under Mr. Jenks, he was the first to sort of divide all the superintendents into groups of 6 areas that align almost with the CUSAC categories, like technology, facilities, INP, governance, and use them as sort of task forces to develop the return and what distance learning is going to look like in the fall, and the overall preparedness. And apparently it's just getting started, but the model has now been imitated by on a statewide basis. And if it hasn't been already put into place statewide, they're gathering the resources to do it. So we were sort of the models for that, which is really terrific. The intent, of course, is to collaborate and take a unified approach to both how we finish the school year in Somerset County and how we reopen. One of the biggest topics was funding and legislation that could impact funding. I guess every district is very concerned. It's a bit of a waiting game to see if state aid will come through. They're looking towards May 22nd, where the New Jersey Treasurer will give a report and a glimpse at the state budget and the fiscal situation. But it's kind of widely acknowledged revenues are going to be down. And the takeaway was that we should all be concerned about that. In terms of locals revenue sources and revenue streams. The legislation that was previously mentioned, both Rich's, is top of everyone's mind since there's one in the Assembly and one in the Senate. If we are able to delay payments of local revenue streams, that's going to impact the schools. There was another legislative bill that was mentioned in this meeting. It's another Sweeney bill, and it kind of leverages the CARES Act, and it's a proposal to allow school districts, particularly if you are receiving less from your local revenue stream. They already had passed a bill that we discussed in the past that required districts to keep paying their contractors, like our transportation and all of the bills that we still owe, whether the services are being rendered or not. So Sweeney's proposal is that if you're going to mandate the districts to keep funding things that they had to fund, you have to allow some relief. And they anticipate this passing, the furlough bill. And it would his proposal was that it would leverage the CARES Act so that with the unemployment insurance or payments and supplements, then the people could break even. So those were really the big takeaways. Basically just talking, and of course they alluded to blended learning, meaning some sort of staggered approach to returning in September being on a hot topic of discussion. So it's just everyone's waiting and seeing. So it's an interesting meeting.
Thank you. Mallory, do you have any report from New Jersey School Boards Association?
Nothing specific to report, but they're offering many virtual meetings and webinars and lots of great information on the guidance around distance learning and uses of technology.
Okay, great. And then for community engagement, Daryl, do you have a report from the Borough Council?
We have, Manny, if you can unmute. Oh, did you do it already? Oh, Carol Eisenberg has her hand up. Manny, if you can unmute her. She's at the top of the list. Thank you.
Hi there. Thanks for having me tonight. So just a few updates from the Borough Council. Again, as a reminder, we have a helpline and council members are staffing it basically 24/7. So anything that any resident needs, 908-745-2111. If you are a resident who can't leave their home and needs help grocery shopping, if you have PPE or non-perishable foods to donate, really whatever your needs are, 908-745-2111 is the community helpline. The borough has also extended the grace period for taxes that were due on May 1st. Now you have until June 1st before interest will be charged. So again, any of the taxes that were due May 1st, we've extended that grace period till June 1st. This is the final week of the photo contest that the Recreation Department's been running. And I also just wanted to give an extra thanks to the Board of Ed for your support for the fundraiser Feed to Give. On Wednesday, May 6th, we raised $5,300 for the Food Bank Network of Somerset County. Over 400 cars from our community were able to be served. And then the Feed to Give initiative donated 4,000 pounds of produce and 2,000 pounds of chicken to the Food Bank Network of Somerset County. It was very successful, and with your support, we'd like to hold it again on Wednesday, June 10th. And then also a very special thank you to board member Ingracia. She was out there for just about 4 hours loading chicken into trunks. So thank you for being there and out there with us. The next Borough Council meeting will be a special meeting to provide updates on COVID-19. It will be this Wednesday, May 13th at 7:30, and dial-in information will be available on the Borough website. Thank you.
Thank you. Gina or anyone from WEF, do you have anything to report?
We put the raise hand document up with instructions. It's slightly revised from anyone who saw it at our last meeting. If you're being asked to speak and you would like the microphone, just follow the directions to raise your hand so that Manny knows that you would like to speak. This is not for members of the public right now. Currently, this is just for the people on the agenda. So right now, we're looking for a representative from WEF. If anyone would like to speak, raise your hand. I don't see any hands being raised.
Okay. Kelly or anyone from CPAG, do you have anything to report?
No raised hands.
And Sonia or anyone else from the PTO? Any reports from the PTO?
Not seeing any raised hands.
Okay, comments from the public on agenda items. We welcome input from the public. There are 2 times during the meeting when the public is invited to speak. The first opportunity to comment on agenda items only is now. The second opportunity for public comment is towards the end of the meeting. Total time allotted for public comment is 30 minutes. Before you make your comment, please state your name and address. In the event it appears the public comment portion of the meeting may exceed 30 minutes, the presiding officer may limit each statement made by a participant to 3 minutes duration. Our public forums are not structured as a question and answer session, but rather are offered as opportunities to share input with the board. In instances where the board feels a response is needed, the presiding officer or superintendent will address the comment. New Jersey statutes do not permit the board to discuss personnel or hiring in public session. Names of students should not be used. Mr. Pepe, will you read the statement due to recording of the meeting?
Members of the public should consider their comments in light of legal rights of those affected and identified in their comments, and be aware that they are personally, legally responsible with potential liability for comments that they make to the board. The board shall not be held liable for comments made by members of the public. At this time, again, I've posted the instructions for raising your hand. Anyone from the public now is welcome to raise your hand, and we will give you the microphone to speak on any matters related to the agenda. Mrs. Harvey, I am not seeing any hands being raised at this time.
Okay. Administrative Joe Mediasi, can you please move the administrative items?
Sure. I move A1, approval of minutes of previous meeting. A2, approval of minutes of previous meeting. A3, approval of school health related closure preparedness plan. A4, approval of revised 2019-2020 school year calendar.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella?
Yes.
Also, Manny, just make sure everyone is unmuted. I see Mr. Buccarelli is muted at this time. Okay, Mr. Barbella was yes. I'm just waiting for Mr. Buccarelli to be unmuted. There we go. Mr. Buccarelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Ingracia?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Mr. Mediasi?
Yes.
Mrs. Morales?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Scharf?
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey?
Yes.
Motion passes. Motion's passed.
Gail, can you please move personnel items?
I motion to pass personnel B1 through B8. B1, appointment of certified tenured staff. B2, appointment of certified non-tenured teaching staff. B3, appointment of administration and non-affiliated staff. B4, eliminate preschool instructor positions. B5, approve revised teacher job description. B6, establish certified preschool teacher position. B7, acceptance of resignation with regret. And B8, approval of revised maternity leave.
We get a second?
Second, Joe.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Mediasi,
I'm going to break up my vote on this. I'm abstaining from B4 and B6 and approving the rest.
okay, give me 1 second. B4 and B6, he said?
Yes.
Okay, Mrs. Morales,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mrs. Scharf,
I will also abstain from B5 and B6.
that was B5 and B6?
I'm sorry, B4 and B6.
B4 and, okay. And are you voting yes on the remaining?
Yes.
Thank you. And Mrs. Harvey?
Yes.
Okay, motion's all passed.
Rich, can you please move operations items for us?
Yes, I move approval of payment of bills, approval of transfer of funds, acceptance of financial reports, and approval of the preschool tuition for the 2019-20 school year.
We get a second?
Second, Gail.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Mediasi,
Yes.
Mrs. Morales,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mrs. Scharf,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey. Mrs. Harvey, I'm not hearing you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, my answer is yes. I apologize.
Thank you. Okay, motion's passed.
Joe Barbella, can you please move policy for us?
Sure. Move E1, approve policies for second reading and adoption, earned sick leave.
Get a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Mediasi,
Yes.
Mrs. Morales,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mrs. Scharf,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Comments from the public?
Mrs. Harvey, I believe you have board business.
Oh, do we do have any more business?
On the agenda, I didn't know if anyone had any.
Oh, I don't know. I know it's on there, but I just didn't see anything listed, so.
Okay.
So I'll just go on to comments from the public. Please remember to state your name and address.
And once again, follow the instructions on the screen for raising your hand. The instructions are to click on the participants button and then scroll all the way to the bottom of the participants where you see a button that says raise hand. If anyone would like to comment, this is the time to raise your hand. We have a few hands being raised here. Manny, if you can pick one. Looks like Mrs. Dabrowski was first.
Thank you. Jill Dobrowanski, principal at Bayberry Elementary School. While I am saddened and disappointed by the decision this evening, it has been an honor to serve our students and side by side with the staff of Bayberry School. I believe that every decision we made was in the best interest for our kids. I'm proud of how we created an environment in which our students and staff love to come to school every day. I will miss seeing the smiles, hearing the laughter, and sharing in the excitement of learning with the students and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to lead this school for the past 2 years. I will never forget my time as a Bayberry Bear. Thank you.
Mrs. Mbimbo is next.
Hi, everybody. I know it's late. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the PTO for their very generous Teachers Appreciation gift. We thank you tremendously, and we hope everybody is well.
There are no more hands being raised at this time.
Does anyone have any other business to discuss? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Gail.
A second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you for joining us this evening. This meeting is adjourned.